Welcome to Certified Data Engineer Associate DEA-C01 Practice Exam number 17. You'll get 30 exam-style questions. I will read each question, then give you a 10-second countdown to review the answer choices on screen. Feel free to pause the video if you need longer. After each countdown, I will reveal the correct answer and explanation. Question 1. Contoso Shipping uses Amazon SQS FIFO queues to process shipment status updates in the U.S. East and Virginia region. Each shipment has a unique tracking number used as the message group ID. During peak holiday season, the application must process 15,000 messages per second, but the standard FIFO queue is throttling at 3,000 messages per second, even with batching enabled. The team needs to increase throughput while maintaining per-shipment ordering guarantees. Which solution resolves the throughput issue? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. SQS FIFO high throughput mode dramatically increases throughput beyond the default 3,000 messages per second with batching. In supported regions like U.S. East and Virginia, high throughput mode supports up to 70,000 transactions per second per API action, which translates to up to 700,000 messages per second when using batch APIs. Throughput scales with the number of distinct message group IDs because SQS distributes messages across partitions using a hash of the message group ID, and each partition supports up to 3,000 messages per second with batching. Since each shipment has a unique tracking number as its message group ID, the queue benefits from excellent partition distribution, easily exceeding the 15,000 messages per second requirement while preserving per-shipment ordering. Switching to standard queues would sacrifice exactly once processing and strict ordering guarantees critical for shipment status updates. Multiple FIFO queues add unnecessary application-level routing complexity when high-throughput mode natively solves the problem. Adjusting visibility timeout has no effect on the send-side throughput quota that causes the throttling. Question 2. Contoso Financial has an Amazon S3 data lake where data scientists run queries using Amazon Athena. The data is stored as CSV files averaging 50 MB each in a flat directory structure with no partitioning. Athena queries consistently scan the entire dataset of 10 TB, resulting in high costs. Which combination of changes will most reduce Athena query costs? Select 2. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answers are option B and option C. Converting CSV to Apache Parquet and implementing partitioning are the two most impactful cost optimizations for Athena. Athena charges $5 per TB of data scanned. Parquet is a columnar format that enables Athena to read only the columns referenced in a query, typically reducing data scanned by 90% or more compared to row-based CSV. Additionally, Parquet supports efficient compression, further reducing the bytes scanned. Implementing date-based partitioning allows Athena to skip entire partitions that do not match the where clause predicates, dramatically reducing the amount of data scanned for time-filtered queries. Together, these two optimizations can reduce Athena costs by 95% or more. S3 intelligent tiering optimizes storage costs but does not reduce Athena query costs since it does not change the amount of data scanned. S3 transfer acceleration improves upload speeds and has no effect on query performance or cost. Redshift Spectrum has its own per TB scanning charge and requires a Redshift cluster, adding infrastructure costs without inherently reducing data scanned. Question 3. Adatum Retail is implementing a change data capture (CDC) pipeline from their Amazon RDS for PostgreSQL database. The captured changes need to be processed by multiple downstream consumers, including a data lake on S3, a real-time dashboard, and an Amazon OpenSearch domain. Which CDC architecture provides the most flexibility for fan-out to multiple consumers? Select 1. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. Using DMS CDC to Amazon MSK provides the most flexible fan-out architecture. MSK Apache Kafka natively supports multiple independent consumers reading from the same topic, each tracking their own offset. MSK Connect provides managed sync connectors for S3 and OpenSearch without custom code, while additional Kafka consumers can power the real-time dashboard. Kafka's replay capability and configurable retention also provide resilience. Running 3 separate DMS tasks creates triple the load on the source database's transaction log, which can impact source performance. DMS to Kinesis data streams with Firehose works, but Firehose adds minimum 60-second latency with dynamic partitioning, and the architecture is less extensible for adding new consumers. Native PostgreSQL logical replication to Lambda requires managing replication slots, connection handling, and custom consumer code, adding significant operational overhead. Question 4. Adatum Logistics uses Amazon SQS FIFO queues to process order fulfillment events across multiple warehouses. During flash sales, throughput spikes to 50,000 messages per second. Each warehouse must process its orders in strict sequence. The data engineer needs to ensure reliable message processing at this volume while preserving per warehouse ordering. The solution must use SQS FIFO and minimize operational complexity. Which configuration meets these requirements? Select one, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. SQS FIFO queues with high throughput mode enabled support up to 70,000 transactions per second without batching and up to 700,000 messages per second with batching in top-tier regions like US East and Virginia, US West Oregon, and Europe Ireland at 50,000 messages per second. This is well within the supported limit. Using warehouse ID as the message group ID ensures strict ordering within each warehouse while allowing parallel processing across different warehouses. Standard SQS queues do not guarantee ordering, and implementing application-level ordering adds significant complexity and error-prone deduplication logic. Creating multiple FIFO queues per warehouse introduces unnecessary routing complexity, increases operational overhead, and makes scaling difficult as new warehouses are added. Kinesis data streams could handle the throughput but requires managing shard counts, checkpoint logic, and consumer applications, adding substantial operational burden compared to the fully managed SQS FIFO approach. Question 5. A data engineer at Tailspin Corp maintains an Oz Glue crawler that catalogs data in an Amazon S3 data lake. The crawler runs on a daily schedule, but the team has noticed it takes increasingly long to complete because it rescans all existing S3 objects. The data is organized by date partitions, year/month/day, and new data arrives only in new daily partition folders. What should the data engineer do to reduce crawler execution time and cost? Select one, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. Setting the recrawl policy to crawl new folders only causes the crawler to only scan S3 folders that were not present during previous crawl runs. Since the data arrives in new daily partition folders, this policy significantly reduces execution time and cost by skipping all previously cataloged partitions. This policy does require that the schema change policy be set to log rather than update in database. Crawl event mode uses S3 event notifications for the fastest detection of new data, but requires additional setup of S3 event notifications and an SQS queue, adding operational complexity. While it is a valid option, it is not the simplest solution when data arrives in clearly defined new folders. Increasing DPU allocation may speed up scanning, but does not eliminate redundant rescanning of existing data, so it addresses the symptom rather than the root cause. Custom classifiers control how the crawler identifies file formats and schema, but have no effect on which folders or objects are scanned. Question 6. A data engineer at Tailspin Healthcare must ensure that all API calls to their S3 data lake buckets are logged for a compliance audit. The audit requires the ability to query the logs using SQL and retain them for 5 years. Which solution meets these requirements with the least operational overhead? Select one, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. CloudTrail Lake provides a managed SQL query engine with event data stores that support up to 10-year retention. Enabling CloudTrail data events for S3 buckets captures all API calls, and CloudTrail Lake allows direct SQL querying without managing additional infrastructure. S3 server access logging captures access logs but requires setting up separate storage, managing retention, and configuring a query engine, adding operational overhead. Delivering CloudTrail logs to S3 with glue crawlers and Athena works, but requires managing crawler schedules, table definitions, and S3 lifecycle policies for 5-year retention. Streaming to OpenSearch adds significant cost and complexity for a compliance logging use case. Question 7. Litware Insurance has an S3 data lake with sensitive policyholder data. The data governance team needs to grant the actuarial team access to specific columns' policy type, claim amount, region, while hiding PII columns' name, SSN, address. The data team also needs to ensure that the actuarial analysts can only see records where region equals US East. The company uses AWS Lake Formation for governance. Which lake formation feature should the data engineer configure? Select one, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. Lake formation data filters provide cell-level security by combining column-level security, include or exclude lists of columns, with row-level filter expressions in a single data filter definition. The data engineer can create a data filter that includes only the policy type, claim amount, and region columns while applying a row filter expression where region equals US East. This is the most direct and precise mechanism for this combined requirement. LFDAGs are designed for scalable tag-based access control across many tables and databases, but do not directly support row-level filtering expressions within a single table. IAM policies operate at the API action level and cannot enforce column-level or row-level restrictions on data within tables. S3 bucket policies control access to objects, not to specific columns or rows within data files. Question 8. Fabricam Analytics is building a data warehouse on Amazon Redshift. They have a large fact table orders with 2 billion rows that is frequently joined with a small dimension table product categories containing 500 rows. Queries typically filter on a date range column. The data engineer needs to choose the optimal distribution style and sort key for the fact table and the dimension table to maximize query performance. Which configuration should the data engineer use? Select one, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. For a large fact table joined with a small dimension table, the optimal strategy is key distribution on the join column for the fact table and all distribution for the small dimension table. All distribution copies the entire dimension table to every compute node, ensuring that joins with the fact table are always local and never require data redistribution across nodes. A compound sort key on the date column for the fact table enables efficient range-restricted scans on date filters, which is the most common query pattern. Even distribution for both tables would cause expensive data redistribution during joins. Key distribution on both tables is unnecessary since the dimension table is small enough for all distribution. Auto distribution may not choose the optimal strategy, and even distribution for a dimension table forces cross-node shuffling during joins. Question 9. Contoso Healthcare stores patient records in a DynamoDB table with a partition key of patient ID and a sort key of visit date. The application frequently needs to query records by doctor ID to retrieve all visits for a specific doctor, sorted by visit date. The table receives approximately 5,000 writes per second. A data engineer needs to add this query capability, which approach meets the requirements while minimizing impact on the base table. Select 1, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. A global secondary index with Doctor ID as the partition key and visit date as the sort key directly supports the required query pattern. The GSI write capacity must be provisioned equal to or greater than the base table write capacity to prevent write throttling on the base table. When GSI write capacity is insufficient, DynamoDB throttles writes to the base table, causing application failures. A local secondary index cannot use doctorid as the sort key because the LSI must share the same partition key as the base table patiented, and doctorid needs to be the primary access pattern. Provisioning minimum GSI write capacity would cause throttling on the base table at 5,000 writes per second. Scanning with filter expression reads the entire table and does not reduce consumed read capacity units, making it inefficient and expensive. Question 10. Adatum Analytics uses Amazon EMR to process large-scale genomics data. The cluster runs Apache Spark jobs that require 200 TB of intermediate shuffle data, and the output must persist after cluster termination. The data engineer wants to minimize costs while maintaining fault tolerance for the compute layer. Which EMR cluster configuration should the data engineer implement? Select 1, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. A small number of core nodes on on-demand instances provides reliable HDFS storage for intermediate shuffle data and ensures cluster stability, while task nodes on spot instances provide cost-effective additional compute capacity. Task nodes are ideal for spot because they store no HDFS data, so spot interruptions only affect running tasks without data loss. Writing final outputs to S3 via EMRFS ensures data persistence after cluster termination. Using only core nodes with on-demand instances is significantly more expensive than leveraging Spot for compute-heavy task nodes. Using only task nodes provides no HDFS storage for shuffle data. Using core nodes with Spot instances risks HDFS data loss when Spot instances are interrupted, potentially corrupting the cluster. Question 11. A company stores PII data in an S3 data lake accessed by multiple user groups. Each group should only access the PII data relevant to them. Which solution satisfies this requirement with the least operational overhead? Select 1 answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. AWS Lake Formation data filters provide column-level and row-level access control directly on S3 registered data through the Glue data catalog. Permissions are granted or revoked per IAM principle using a simple interface, and the controls are enforced automatically when those principles query the data through Athena without any application code changes. Registering the S3 location and defining filters is significantly faster to implement than building a custom access system. Moving data to Redshift via Glue ETL introduces a data pipeline to maintain ongoing Redshift cluster costs, and the row-level security configuration in Redshift requires writing security policies tied to database users, adding multiple layers of complexity. Building a custom application with Athena and Cognito requires developing and maintaining a query interface, Cognito user pool management, and custom permission logic, which is substantially more development work than Lake Formation's declarative grant model. IAM identity-based policies cannot enforce column-level access on S3 object data content. They control which S3 paths a principal can read, but not which columns within the files of those paths. Question 12. Adatum Analytics has a step functions workflow that needs to process 500,000 CSV records stored in a single file in Amazon S3. Each record must be independently transformed by a Lambda function, and results should be written back to S3. The team wants to maximize parallelism while handling up to 5% of records failing without stopping the entire workflow. Which configuration should the data engineer use? Select one, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. The distributed map state is purpose-built for processing large-scale datasets from S3. It supports CSV files as input through the item reader configuration, can launch up to 10,000 parallel child workflow executions, and provides tolerated failure percentage to allow a specified percentage of items to fail without stopping the workflow. The result writer exports results to S3 organized by execution status. Inline map state is limited to 40 concurrent iterations and cannot handle 500,000 items efficiently. Parallel state requires predefined branches and cannot dynamically iterate over records. Choice state cannot split data into chunks and would require complex custom logic to achieve parallelism. Question 13. Northwind Trading uses Oz glue crawlers to catalog CSV data arriving in an S3 bucket every 15 minutes from multiple trading partners. The current crawler configuration uses Crawl Everything, which scans the entire bucket on each run and takes 20 minutes to complete. The data engineer needs to reduce crawler execution time and cost while ensuring newly delivered files are detected promptly. Which configuration should the data engineer implement? Select one, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. Crawl event mode uses S3 event notifications to inform the crawler about new or changed objects, making it the fastest detection method while eliminating the need to scan the entire bucket. When configured, the crawler only processes the specific objects identified by the events, dramatically reducing execution time and cost compared to Crawl Everything. Crawl New Folders only detects new S3 prefixes, folders, and forces the schema change policy to log, meaning it cannot update the catalog schema. If trading partners deliver files to existing prefixes, these new files would not be detected. Scheduling the crawler hourly increases detection latency from 20 minutes to potentially over an hour, which does not meet the prompt detection requirement. While using the Create Partition API via Lambda is a valid approach for partition registration, it requires building and maintaining custom code and does not handle schema detection or updates. Question 14. Contoso Financial has an Amazon DynamoDB table storing customer account balances that is replicated across 3 Oz regions using global tables. The application team reports that after writing an updated balance in the ACEAST-1 region, a read from EU-West-1 occasionally returns stale data. The data engineer needs to ensure that reads in EU-West-1 always reflect the latest written value. Which solution addresses this requirement? Select one, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. DynamoDB global tables use asynchronous replication with last writer wins conflict resolution. Replication latency is typically under 1 second, but is not instantaneous. The only way to guarantee reading the latest written value is to read from the same region where the write was performed. Redesigning the application to route reads to the right region ensures consistency. DAX is an in-memory cache that would not help with cross-region replication latency, and DAX does not cache strongly consistent reads. They pass through to DynamoDB directly. Strongly consistent reads in EU-West-1 only guarantee consistency within that region's replica. They cannot force the replica to have the latest data from another region's write that has not yet replicated. Increasing write capacity units on the EU-West-1 replica does not affect replication speed, which is managed by the global tables infrastructure independently of provisioned capacity. Question 15. Fabricam Logistics processes shipment tracking events through Amazon MSK. a consumer application using SASL/IAM authentication is failing to connect to the MSK cluster. The data engineer has confirmed the IAM role has the correct Kafka cluster permissions. The MSK cluster has both SASL/SCRAM and SASL/IAM authentication enabled. What should the data engineer investigate first? Select 1, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. When using SASL/IAM authentication with MSK, the Kafka client must use a compatible library version and be configured with the correct SASL mechanism, AWS MSK IAM. Common connection failures occur when the client uses a standard SASL/SCRAM or plaintext mechanism instead of the IAM-specific mechanism, especially when multiple authentication methods coexist on the cluster. The client must explicitly target the IAM Bootstrap broker's endpoint port 9098. ACLs having no effect with SASL/IAM is a true statement but would not cause connection failures. IAM authentication requires Kafka version 2.71 or above, not 2.60 or earlier. Port 9092 is for plaintext connections. IAM authentication uses port 9098, so checking only port 9092 would miss the actual required port. Question 16. A data engineer at Tailspin Analytics needs to build a pipeline that extracts customer data from Salesforce on a daily schedule and loads it into an Amazon S3 data lake. The pipeline must support field-level data masking for email addresses and use AWS Private Link for secure connectivity. Which AWS service is most appropriate for this requirement? Select 1, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. Amazon AppFlow is specifically designed for SaaS to AWS data integration with native Salesforce connectivity among its 40+ supported connectors. It supports scheduled flows, built-in field-level data masking transformations, and Private Link for private connectivity without traversing the public internet. DMS does not support Salesforce as a source. Glue ETL does not have a native Salesforce connector. Building a custom JDBC connector adds significant operational effort. Lambda with the Salesforce REST API requires custom development and maintenance of authentication, pagination, error handling, and masking logic. Question 17. Contoso Media has a data pipeline using Amazon Data Firehose to deliver clickstream data from their website to Amazon S3. The data arrives as JSON and must be stored in Parquet format with dynamic partitioning based on the user's country extracted from each record. After configuring format conversion and dynamic partitioning, the data engineer notices that the buffer size cannot be set below 64 MB. What explains this behavior, and what is the minimum buffer interval the data engineer can configure? Select 1, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. When dynamic partitioning is enabled on Amazon Data Firehose, the buffer size range is 64-128 MB, and the minimum buffer interval is 60 seconds. These constraints exist because dynamic partitioning must accumulate sufficient records to efficiently distribute them across multiple S3 prefixes based on the extracted partition keys. The maximum active partitions per delivery stream is 500. While Parquet/ORC format conversion also enforces a 64-128 MB buffer range, the 60-second minimum interval is specifically imposed by dynamic partitioning. 0-second buffering is only available for S3 destinations without dynamic partitioning enabled. Question 18. Fabricam Genomics processes large genomic datasets using Amazon EMR. The cluster has 10 core nodes and 20 task nodes. The data engineer wants to reduce compute costs by at least 60% without risking HDFS data loss. Which instance purchasing strategy should the data engineer apply? Select 2, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answers are option A and option C. Task nodes only run processing tasks and do not store HDFS data, making them ideal candidates for spot instances, which provide up to 90% cost savings. Since 20 of 30 nodes are task nodes, using spot instances for all task nodes provides significant cost reduction exceeding 60%. Core nodes store HDFS data, and losing core nodes due to spot interruptions would result in HDFS data loss and potential job failures, so they must use on-demand or reserved instances. Using spot instances for core nodes directly risks HDFS data loss, which the requirement explicitly prohibits. The primary node manages cluster coordination, and its termination would stop the entire cluster, making spot instances inappropriate. While Graviton instances offer some cost savings, they alone would not achieve the 60% reduction target. Question 19. Northwind Logistics uses AWS step functions to orchestrate a data pipeline that processes shipping manifests. One step invokes an AWS Glue ETL job that typically runs for 45 minutes. The team notices that the step function's execution sometimes reports the Glue job as complete before it actually finishes, causing downstream steps to fail. What is the most likely cause and fix? Select 1, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. The request-response integration pattern returns immediately after the service API call is made, without waiting for the job to complete. This causes step functions to proceed to the next state before the Glue job finishes. The run a job sync pattern waits for the Glue job to complete before transitioning to the next state, ensuring proper sequencing. Express workflows have a 5-minute maximum duration, but the issue described is about premature state transition, not timeout. If the execution role lacked permissions, the step function state would fail with an error rather than report success. Flex execution mode affects job scheduling priority, but does not change how completion status is reported to step functions. Question 20. A data engineer at Fabricam is migrating a 5 TB Oracle database from an on-premises data center to Amazon Aurora PostgreSQL. The migration must minimize downtime to under 1 hour. The database receives continuous write traffic during business hours. Which migration approach should the data engineer use? Select 1, review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. AWS DMS Full Load plus CDC mode performs an initial bulk transfer of all existing data, and then continuously replicates changes from the Oracle transaction logs to Aurora PostgreSQL. This allows the migration to proceed without stopping writes to the source, and the cutover can happen once the CDC lag is minimal, achieving under 1 hour of downtime. Full load only mode requires stopping all writes during the migration of 5 TB, which would far exceed the 1 hour downtime window. Exporting to CSV and importing via S3 does not support continuous replication and would require extended downtime. Oracle Data Pump provides logical exports, but does not support heterogeneous migration to Aurora PostgreSQL or continuous change replication. That is the end of practice exam number 17. Review the questions you missed, then come back for the next batch.